I'm going to send that to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, David. I'd like to invite David up. You've heard the term with our age, when you have Hutton speaks, you listen, I submit to you. The new EF Hutton.
Hey, God bless you, everybody. How you doing? Awesome. Awesome. Well, it's an honor to be here, and that was an amazing subject that was just discussed here. As we think about the future right now, I mean, one of the things that I was writing down in my notes was literally about artificial intelligence, and I'm like, should I even bring this up right now? Because this is one of these subjects where, you know, it is this double-edged sword. There can be this incredible benefit to our lives, and if you're not using it already or you've not looked into it, you know, I think that there's a lot of very practical things. Think of AI as a speed reader right now for us, practically speaking. But it does give us the ability to get things done quicker and faster, and it's pretty amazing. So I'm just excited to be here and to share some things. So David Stryzewski, common spelling, Irish, there at the top. Just kidding. Anyway, I just threw together a quick PowerPoint here, guys. So this is not the most advanced thing. So I teach right now on college campuses here in the greater Seattle area, retirement planning. But I have a registered investment advisory firm, insurance company, CPA firm, and we are about 35 right now in total. You'll note there at the bottom left, it was pretty amazing. Inc. magazine actually named us one of the fastest growing companies in America in 2020, privately held companies in America, which was awesome. And then we were actually in the top 500 workplaces too. So be successful, that's awesome. Be good people, probably more important. That's why we're here, kingdom people. What I want to share today is not necessarily the most fluffy message to bring, but I have the incredible opportunity, as Tim shared, to be on the front lines. I was just in New York 3 weeks ago. I got to do 7 different live from the New York Stock Exchange, live from Fox News, several of those live from Fox Business. I've been on the show Varney and Company, if you're familiar with it. It's on Fox Business. It's the #1 show actually on cable television. So I've been on weekly for about a year and a half now, and it's an amazing thing to be invited to this place and to have revelation about where things are going and what's happening. And so I want to share some things today that may be, gosh, Dave, I don't really understand finance, etc. I wanted to share with you the simplest way that I can talk about where our economy is right now. And then I want to talk about how we prepare for that. Sound good?
Yes.
All right, Enoch, if you could advance that, please. Okay, so there's 5 factors or things that move the stock market. And we want to understand how these 5 things are moving, what's happening. And I'm going to bottom line you here to say that all 5 of these areas are actually blaring with warning signs right now. And so this is a unique moment. There's always challenges, but there's a unique moment that we find ourselves in here today. So these 5 are inflation, interest rates, what the Fed's doing about it, corporate profitability, geopolitical events, the macro, the big picture. Okay, if you could advance, please. All right, so this is the last 25 years of our inflation in America here. And so the question is, where have we been? I love this idea of understanding where we've been, which helps us to appreciate where we are today. Of course, if you have 2 different points, you can measure a distance. And so then that also gives us a trajectory for where tomorrow might go. I do a lot of retirement planning. That's where our firm is primarily geared towards. And so the big deal here is there's 10,000 boomers that are turning 65 every single day right now. And as I'm looking around the room, I feel like a lot of people are hitting that demographic. And so it's important for us to understand that the world has completely just changed here. As you know, I think actually it's a good idea to say, 2020 vision. Well, the year 2020 was a point where we can reflect what was pre-2020, what was post-2020, where have we been, where we are, and then where are we going. We need 2020 vision. And so there's a lot of things that have just adjusted right now. So as we can see here, inflation has basically been sub or below 3% for the last 25 years, like way below. And then now we've just seen things pop up in such a way that we are, we're at 40-year highs, or they were at 40-year highs. Now, the way that the government communicates inflation is not actually a way that relates to you as an individual. And so it's important to understand that statistics lie. It's important to understand that they're designed to be confusing on purpose so that we just remain complacent and at peace. Just really quick, capitalism is the best thing that we know here on this side of eternity. It's not fully kingdom, but it's got some great stuff to it. Capitalism makes things cheaper. True? And if we had so much money in this system that every merger and acquisition deal got done, the stock market hit record highs, the real estate market hit record highs, the bond market was at record highs, which meant it was really cheap, and the crypto market hit record highs. I mean, we saw the whole world just boom. Well, here's the point. If all this money is in the system, it should be making things cheaper, right? Right? It should be, except for the inflation that we have is so significant because of the print and spend that's going on right now. I didn't include this in the notes, but this is a really big deal. So there's 3 ways that we can fix our debt issue. We can either cut spending, that's the hard work. No one wants to do that. It's very difficult. Raise taxes. Well, shoot, we're going into another political year right now. That's not really on the table. So they tell you the tax of least resistance, which is to print money. Coming out of 2008, there was no such thing as quantitative easing. We all learned this term, which basically means print money, deflate your dollar, or inflate your dollar rather, and you basically have less buying power. Well, the world is catching up on this right now, and this is not a great moment for us as a nation, as we're literally on the verge of losing everything that we've had, and in this leadership role, at least for the last 250 years. Can you please advance? So we've seen inflation go up. I think a personal CPI, a personal inflation, is an important thing. Okay, so the next thing is what the Fed's doing. Go back one, please. So we've got the fastest rate increase in the United States history. Rate increase, what's that mean? So the Federal Reserve, well, first of all, the Federal Reserve is neither federal nor is it a reserve. Okay, so we're starting out with statistics lie, okay? And so the Federal Reserve, they move our economy by making things tighter or looser, making things more expensive for us or cheaper for us as the consumer. The United States is based upon the consumer. There's 70% of our economy is based on how the consumer does. So the Fed is a big deal. So we had rates down here. If you look at the bottom, they went down to 0. This is 6,000-year record lows. Of all recorded history, we've never seen cheaper money than where we were. And so what the Fed did is they had to raise interest rates. Why? Because they had to curb demand. Their theory is that we were buying too many things. So there's too many dollars out there chasing too few items. Okay. Now they're going to have a hard time continuing with that thesis because there's not a whole bunch of dollars chasing fewer items. What we have is things are getting a lot more expensive because the erosion that's taken place in businesses, the erosion that's taken place to the individual today, is a really big deal. So anyway, they raised rates fast. What did that do? It basically, their stance was basically against you, the individual, the consumer, and they're trying to cripple you. That's what they have to do. I'm just saying it in a plain way. They have to cripple you from buying and keeping the prices go up. If you could advance it, please. So we're at 5.5%. So this is interesting. I just noted some tops here. And so what happens with the Fed in historical timeframes is they'll raise interest rates. And so the example here in the 90s, they were able to not have a red line. Do you see how there's red lines following some of these tops where the interest rates rise? Well, this is what a soft landing looks like. The Fed can come in and they can engineer things in such a way, hey, we're going to make it more expensive, and then we're going to back it off and taper it off before things really crash hard. Okay. But what has traditionally happened, though, is that 12 months after the Federal Reserve stops hiking, is that we have a 35.5% contraction, meaning the market drops 35.5% on average. Now, my personal belief is that we are being set up right now for something that is more than 35% on the downside, because there's so many factors that are being eroded and falling apart today, specifically in the US dollar, and that we have challenges today with these BRICS nations, which I'll get into in just a moment. But the point is that we need resources in order to be able to finance the things that the Lord wants to do. Is that true? And so money is just a means that we have to operate within here, this side of eternity. But faith is the currency of heaven. And so that's the thing that we need to understand. Not blind faith, but faith in who he is and knowing who we worship and knowing that our provision's there if we know who we worship. Right? And so we want to be as wise as serpents and as harmless as doves. Okay, so the third thing is interest rates. And so, of course, what ended up happening with the Fed raising these rates is that we have more expensive things today. I just was looking this up right now. Do you know that a 30-year mortgage today, as of this moment, is 8.637%? That's the average in America right now, today. And so we went from 3% just last year to now we're at 8%. Now, here's something to understand. This is a simple rule of thumb, and that is every 1% that interest rates rise on a home, the value of the house has to actually come down 10%. Or you've got to be making 10% more income in order to afford that much of a house before. I could unpack how the math works, but I can show you how more money has been made in real estate than any other time. But it's because interest rates were going lower and lower and lower and lower and lower since September 1981. But now they're going back up. And this is where the whole world is flipped. We no longer have cheap money. That's gone. That's done. Do not expect it prior to the return of Christ, okay? It is not coming back in the way that it was. Our system and how we were operating and everything that we were doing, it's not going backwards. There's just no way. In fact, we're losing the battle to inflation. I should have made that a point here on step one, which was with inflation right now, the last 3 months, we saw CPI go from 3% in June to 3.2 in July to 3.7 in August. That's called a trend. I followed 3 months. That's a trend. It was trending up. We're going to see things get a lot more expensive. I believe that you're going to probably see the answer to this mortgage problem is going to probably be 40 or 50 of mortgages. And they'll start announcing them next year or the year following. They'll have no other choice. The market will be totally stalled out. So I would say that it's a buyer's market right now or a seller's market. It's no one's market. It's no one's. Like the only people that are buying right now are all cash. And in fact, I just asked my Bank of America guy, what was that, Wednesday? And I said, hey, of the 10 people that you go through who were qualified last year to purchase a home but didn't get to do it, but now they're ready to do it and they're trying. Of those 10, how many are not able to go through right now? 7 out of 10. 7 out of 10. So the lending practices have changed considerably. Here's a big one: corporate debt and borrowing. Okay, so the whole world is run on credit. The whole world. Okay. And so corporations have been borrowing at record rates to finance new products and tools and get new machinery, but also, it's buildings. And right now we've got about 1.5 trillion coming due each year for the next 7 years. That number trillion, that is so big, our minds don't even understand how this works. The problem is right now is that the banks don't have enough money. Because see, when interest rates went high like this, think about your bank. It locked in all these 3% loans. Half of America refied between 2020 and 2021. Okay, they locked in 3% loans. 3% is way below inflation today. Okay, so that is your liability as a homeowner, is your mortgage, right? That's a bank's asset. We're on opposite sides of the table from each other. Okay, and so if their assets yield 3 and inflation's much higher, they're losing. Following that. Well, what's also happening right now is because the Treasury of the United States is paying so much more money than they were before, 5.5% on a 2-year commitment right now. That's pretty incredible given where we've been. The banks cannot compete. And I've got a slide coming up here in just a minute that's going to show you what's happening right now with our system as it's deleveraging. And this is a really important thing to understand, because basically it's a house of cards that's been puffed up. That's what bubbles are, is that things get inflated out of control and then they pop and then things right size and they go back to what is normal, except for we don't really have a foundation underneath us this time because of a lot of different changes here. Long story short, corporate debt is probably my biggest concern because they have to make decisions. They have 5 and 7 year terms on their loans, not 30 years like we're used to. 5 and 7 on big numbers. Junk bonds, which in other words, if you have a 401k and it says that your high yield bonds, Junk bonds mean less creditworthy companies who have to borrow through alternative means than traditional banks. Okay, so junk bonds that we're borrowing at 4. If you're not creditworthy at 4, and now you've got to borrow at 12 and 15%, I'm just going to share with you something. I believe that we are going to see a lot of Chapter 11s, like a tremendous amount of Chapter 11s that are going to be coming out right now. And this is a really bad deal because as investors, one of the places that we are told right now, if we want to be more conservative, is to load up in bonds. This is Wall Street's answer, by the way. There's stocks and there's bonds. Bonds are the safer part. Load up in bonds. So here's the problem. If that company that you own the bond of, the debt of, that's supposed to pay you, and they go out of business, how much do you get back? Nothing. P-Series. The safest part can have absolute loss, permanent loss of principal. That is not a great idea. Yet this is how we are all set up right now. And the bond system is twice as large as the stock system. And so we know where all the money is. Okay. We know how we're allocated. And I'm just sharing with you right now, one of the biggest issues that we could have right now, I think, is actually investing in bonds and corporate debt. Because there's going to be a massive explosion that will happen when these corporate earnings get compressed because they have to pay more for their borrowing. In fact, I just listened to a guy, he owns 2 mid-sized businesses and 1 small business. And he said that 2/3 of his profit this year are now being eaten up by the higher interest he has to pay on servicing those debts. Yeah. So this is like not a very positive moment. That doesn't mean that we can grow. That doesn't mean that we can capital expend back into our businesses and take over market share. It means we're just going to try to maintain what we have. There are bond alternatives, and I can talk a whole lot more about those at another time. But so there are alternatives. This is what my firm specializes in doing. But I believe that this is going to be a rolling recession. Okay, what we're used to is seeing one big down, and then it recovers quickly. They call it a V-shaped recovery. Quick down, back up. That's not what this is going to be. This is going to be a rolling recession. Why? Because when we talk about interest rates and the cost of capital and the cost of borrowing and this whole system set up on credit, it affects every single part of our economy, including the consumer. And the challenge here is going to be that, hey, maybe, the first ones to have challenges, or maybe the next one to have challenges is going to be the real estate side of our economy. Okay, great. Well, the consumer's now having challenges, so retail's really going to get hit. Now banking's about to get hit. And with the banking gets hit, then holy smokes, we're going to be having a lot more problems. Also, you probably just understand that as of March this year, Silicon Valley Bank went out of business, fastest failure in our history. Okay, it was also the biggest bailout in the history of the United States that followed 2 weekends later. And so here they are just flushing trillions out the door to these banks who locked in at these 3% or really low interest rate treasuries, and things were not marked to the market. So I believe this is going to be a rolling recession that's probably going to result in what they would call a lost decade. What's that? That means that we're probably not going to have positive markets for a while. So we better be able to make money in a sideways market. How do you do that? You got to be more active in your approach. You've got to, when things are in favor, hey, let's go and do that. When they're not, let's get out of it and, let the storm blow through, go inside to cash as an example, and then we can allocate back in. I will share this with you, just as from a faith standpoint. A lot of people are going to lose a whole lot of money. It's just a fact. Those who have ears to hear and eyes to see, though, you will be empowered at one of the most important times in history. And I believe that you're going to make more money than you ever had before, because real money is actually made in these times of transitional shift. By the way, this whole AI boom, that is going to bring a whole new level of billionaires and millionaires that you don't even know their names today. Businesses are going to rise up with like 10% of the team that they had before. So they can do it for a lot cheaper, which helps with all the debt issues and all the challenges here. And so there's new wineskins that are going to be coming. And we just need to make sure that the right people are a part of those teams. So be praying into that for sure. If you could please advance it. So this is the interest rate changes that we just saw. So September 1981 is when we summited the mountain here. This is the Treasury, the 10-year Treasury of the United States. So that, to being a financial advisor, that's the one of the questions that you're asked on the test. Where's the safest place to put money? So here's the safest place. And in September of 81, they were paying 15.84%. So in other words, put 100 grand in, you get paid 15,840. That's awesome. Well, a couple of years later, when they're yielding 12.5, Well, you got one that's yielding 15.8. So what's happened is this seesaw effect, where when interest rates go down, the value of your bond goes up, right? We're on the flip side of this today, because see, in July of 2020, we got down to 0.55%. And then as of September 26th, so just this week, we're at 4.54. This is the reason why interest rates are going up on the mortgages, et cetera, et cetera. So I expect that this is going to continue to rise. And by the way, this is the equivalent, right? I'm showing on the bottom right here, hand corner here. It may not look like a lot to you guys, but from where I come from, this is Richter scale movement. This is like the plate tectonics of our economic system are changing and shifting right now. This stuff doesn't move quickly, but it's actually moving fast right now. And so this is something that could cause a tremendous explosion. Here's we're going forward. Can you please advance? Thank you. So corporate earnings are getting compressed. That's number 4. That's the companies, right? So the reason why we own stocks or we own companies is because we want them to make money. If they make money, guess what? Then you do as well. You're a part owner. If they don't, then you lose right alongside of them. That's the deal. They're getting squeezed right now in a really big way. I'll just kind of leave that there. I've been kind of making that point. If you please advance one more, honey. So then this is the geopolitical events in the macro picture. And this is the part where we need to have prophetic eyes to see and ears to hear. Okay, there's no simple answer to anything that I'm about to share, but we got 33 trillion in debt right now as a nation. Shoot, when we were ending 2019, I got the opportunity to meet President Trump at the White House on October 27th, the Tuesday before the election. And, we were 22 trillion in debt. Was I concerned about the debt load back then? Yes. But it took us 250 years as a nation to get there. In the last 4 years, we've added $11 trillion in debt. We've added 50% of what was there just in 2019. Again, 2020 vision. Where were we pre-2020? Where are we today? This is important to know because this has sped up ridiculously quick. In fact, Janet Yellen, our Treasury Secretary, said that we need essentially $2 trillion just to finish the year. Like the US needs $2 trillion more just to hit our budget. So that's the equivalent of $10.4 billion a day that we have to print or in extra treasuries, and we have to sell them. No one's buying them. That's the reason why the price is going up. We got downgrades as a nation. We just got downgraded by Fitch here this like not even a month ago. And then now Moody's, the last organization or rating agency to downgrade the US. This looks like they're about to do it because, hey, congratulations, everybody. October the 1st, we're now shut down. Our government's having a shutdown. And so, the Republicans have the House. We know that vote just happened here last year. And so they have the purse strings. And so their deal is they're saying, hey, we're not allowing this budget to go forward. This is out of control spending. We're not going to saddle the next generation with even more debt. We're going to have some answers here, some accountability to it. Of course, the Biden administration isn't appreciating that right now. And it's going to result in an October 1st shutdown that could be the inception point here of all these negative things that could happen. Why? Because if the United States is less creditworthy, at a moment in our history where Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, Saudi Arabia just got inducted on August 24th. We've got real challengers right now on the earth as far as, the US dollar and settling currencies. In fact, I'll just mention this really quick. I will pray for us on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday next week. We're going to be in Las Vegas with a gentleman by the name of Jim Rickards, if anyone's ever heard of him. So former CIA guy, he's a Pentagon guy. He's, I think, a Christian as well, but he actually has the insight on what's going on here. And so we're going to a very small, very private thing in Las Vegas to understand more so about what's taking place here. But the United States dollar is very weak. It's very diluted. This is what inflation's about. It's because we're printing and printing and printing and printing and printing and printing and printing. Oh, by the way, I should also note this. We also had a lot of people move during COVID. We've got this, they called it the Great Resignation. People unemployed themselves, but also the Great Migration, where people move from New York, New Jersey, Illinois, California, the highest income tax states, to places like Texas and Florida, South Carolina, and Florida. Yeah, there we go. All right. But A lot of people moved. Now, did these states, did they cut back in their budgets just like you would cut back if you knew that you were going to have a lot less income because the wealthiest people amongst you who you collect tax revenue from have moved out of your state permanently? No, they inflated everything and they continued to print. I don't want to be right about this, but I think that you're going to see New York, New Jersey, Illinois, and California, all four of them bankrupt within the next 12 to 18 months. And I don't think it lasts past the election. I mean, it's right there. You know, our nation has a history with no taxation without representation. Texas is going to say, I'm not bailing them out. We were a sovereign nation. We got all this oil. We're not going to bail out New York, New Jersey, Illinois, California because of their woke politics, their deficit spending, the way that they've done this thing. You remember, we're the United States, not some federal system. And that's why I generally speaking wear a star on my lapel, because it's about the states' rights. This is about what we do as states. And I pray we do not become the divided states of America. But we find ourselves in a moment in history where we are so divided and we have very little in common with one another. Well, if the adversary keeps us separate, we got wars breaking out. Biggest thing to deal with right now is China, Taiwan. Why? Semiconductors. We can't even do AI without Taiwan Semiconductor. There's a company out there called NVIDIA. They're up like 300% this year. They make the best microprocessor chips in the world that work with AI. Do you know that they don't even manufacture one? Taiwan Semiconductor does all of them. If China takes over Taiwan, the whole semiconductor thing, the reason why we don't have cars, the reason why, we don't have enough technology is because we don't have enough semiconductors. We can't, do the up and down on the windows for Ford trucks. And so there's, look at an auto lot these days. It's because of semiconductors. And so this is a massive, massive issue. This is a security issue, actually, national security, because we can't even make weapons without those chips. So Biden just did this big CHIPS Act thing, but it's going to take 5 to 10 years before we're ready. You just can't make it up. You can't train all the people. You can't get it all going. By the way, it's inflationary to reshore things like that because we can't pay, essentially slave prices like they have in China for what they pay people hourly. We're going to have to pay people real wages here. That's inflationary. There's a lot of things that are going on right now. A banking crisis has begun to unfold in March. Depending on who you listen to, there's best case scenarios, worst case scenarios. I think we're probably going to lose a couple thousand banks. Who's going to bail them out? Yeah. The feds are going to have some real conversations, but it's going to start tipping so fast that we're not going to really be able to navigate it or manage it. These things are falling apart faster today than they have historically. Usually you got a warning of 6 months, a couple of quarters. Silicon Valley Bank was 2 days. UBS, all these institutions are so over leveraged. In fact, I've got a really good slide here in just a second. You want to hit that, Jess? Yeah, there it is. Perfect. Hey, here's the fractional banking system. Let me just mention this real quick. This is an important thing to know. This is not made up. I wanted to share this because one of the last things I remember Bob Jones talking about was how the global economic system was coming unraveled right before he passed away. So here's how the bank works. They put $1,000 on deposit. They keep $100, 10%. They loan out $900. That person gets that loan. He goes and spends it. That new person has $900. 90 gets saved. 810 goes out. The new person has it. And just note here that we've got $2,710 that's in the system from the first 1,000. This is just 2 rotations so far. Then we go down here, 810, 81's reserved, 729 goes out. Now we got about almost $3,500 into the system. $271 is actually on reserve. This is just 3 rotations of how money works. So the government has found out that if they can print a whole bunch of money, get that into the economy, guess what happens? You spend it, you get a loan, and the whole thing can just continue. And so what's happened is we've generated these bubbles based upon this fractional reserve system. That's all based on credit. So an unwinding is beginning right now. And these banks don't have enough cash on reserve to make new loans. They don't have the 10% anymore. Why? Because the Treasury will insure not just to $250,000, but to any amount. And they pay a higher rate than the bank. The banks have a very difficult time competing right now, and they have no more money to loan. So this is a really big problem because these small and mid-sized banks are the ones that have lent to all of corporate America. And it's almost like we've just walked into a trap that we don't even know. We got in so deep on debt. We just all went willingly. Everything's so wonderful. Everything's, way out in the future. I mean, if you look at the S&P 500, according to Robert Shiller's work, basically it takes 31 years to get your money back. That's how the math works right now, based on the dividends that they're paying. That's not including inflation. Just get your money back. And so that's a big deal. Yes.
This illustrates that how quickly Silicon Valley Bank failed in crisis versus the last banking crisis.
So the last banking crisis took 13 and a half months to unfold. And that was in 2008, 2009. So it was Bear Stearns and Lehman. These were A-rated organizations, the definition of healthy. Washington Mutual, Enron, those are also companies that went out of business during this time frame. But yeah, 13 and a half months from the start of it to the end. So we're just, 6 months in right now, not quite. And so that's a big deal because, we're not quite halfway in, and there's just so much cash in our system right now. That's why we haven't actually seen the recession of 23 yet. I think though that the fourth quarter, which we're starting next week, it's going to be pretty bloody, pretty dark. So the question is, what do we do? What's the rest of my slides here? I can just, what do we do? Okay, I got a bunch of questions and different things. So what do we do? Here's a couple of things that I would just note. One is, as I was just jotting some stuff down here, prices are going to go up, and so it's really important that we know how to budget. Now that's kind of a swear word to some people. I don't know. Create a spending plan. That's another way to say it. This is going to be one of the more important disciplines that will help people in the future. Why? Because if you don't overspend and you can be intelligent with how you're doing certain things, you're going to have other resources to be able to float. If money becomes more scarce, which is what happens in a credit tightened economy, I think budgeting is one of these things. I also think that we need to be investing in ourselves. What does that mean? I don't know. Maybe it's education. Maybe it's some equipment that helps you to be able to be really effective in some of the areas that God has trained you and give you an opportunity for. I think that also try to become the most irreplaceable people on the teams that you're playing for, at your work. What's that? Yeah, that's right. So Brenda just retired, and every day's a Saturday now. But no, she refired. She didn't retire, and so no, it's exciting to see how that works. But like if you need a computer, if you need a laptop, if you need a car, these are the things, the tools. Invest in yourself so that you can be the most effective you that you can be. Don't take it too far. Just do the right stuff. If it's education, it's whatever. That's going to be a big deal. Also, I'd say learn AI. Now, really, what AI? Are you sure? I have been appreciating this stuff for a while, fearing it for a while. We've just begun to figure some things out here at my firm, and holy smokes, it's mind blowing. Just like John was just sharing here, what we're able to do. I think probably the next 12 to 18 months, you're going to see a lot of new companies begin to really get their feet under them as AI is making things a lot cheaper and a lot easier to accomplish. And so if you can learn how to do some of those functions, if they can help to improve your work in different ways, just even thinking about how this stuff can work out, I think that's a really big deal. Yeah, you want to know also who's amongst you, brothers and sisters, your community. You got to know who's on your left and your right. You don't go into days of war and not count the cost. It's an awesome thing to be able to gather here and to be able to know who's amongst you, hear from a few different people, the depth, the wells, what's going on, to be able to stand with each other, pray with each other, allow some of these counsels for the Lord to just breathe on them and allow things to really build. But to know who's amongst you, I mean, we're talking, you got to get your kids in the right places and have them not hanging with the wrong people. You got to make sure that, there's, one of the challenges I was saying this to my kids, I was like, guys, we're living in a day and age where you're probably going to have fewer friends, but the relationships that you have will be deeper than ever before, than any other time in history, because you're going to stand with one another. You're going to bear arms with one another. You're going to need to have each other for this wrestle. because the adversary is coming and he's coming hard. He's coming fast. The accusation stuff is crazy. That's happening right now. So the character assassination, something that they can do with AI. Other John reached over here and said, hey, if people are martyred, how do they get paid for it? Well, life insurance certainly does that. Accidental death and dismemberment, depending on how it happens, that's something. But honestly, that's an investment in yourself. If you are on the front lines, it is not a bad thing to have an extra $50 payment per month to just go into a simple life insurance policy, because I've seen people die with them and die without them. The difference between two families wasn't even apparent while everyone was doing well. But in the cases where someone passed away, you got some life insurance, it actually is a really important point. Tax-free money shows up, and it's a pretty awesome thing. So yeah.
Key-man cash out.
Yeah, there you go. That's right. Yes.
I'm hearing from my Wall Street connections three that seem to be conflicting pieces of advice about AI. One is get it, use it yourself to make better decisions. This one. The other is place your money with our firm because you're using AI to make better investment decisions. And the third is invest your money in these AI technology companies because they're going through the roof. What are you advising people to do with regard to AI?
All of the above. I mean, you just named three different avenues and ways that this thing comes apart. Like more money was made in picks and shovels and selling blue jeans than actually mining for gold. So it's the servicing of them. I don't think that we actually know really how the future is going to unfold. The Lord has given me some serious revelation and downloads over the last couple of years about how cryptocurrencies are actually coming into play and how important they are. I was not this guy, by the way, until the Lord started downloading these thoughts. And so there is a real need right now for a lot of that stuff, but the future of what this is ultimately going to become, we don't know exactly. This is the beginning days of how this stuff is coming together. So I believe that as God's people, who does he first speak to and reveal these things? Prophets, his people. What's that?
So I'm curious, based upon what you're sharing here, what should we, church, specifically KLI, what should we do? What would be your hope to see us do to have an impact? And that can include you, what's that business, whatever you think. What should the church be doing that would actually contribute to our Father's plan unfolding in the midst of this opportunity?
Yeah. Well, you shall receive power when the Holy Spirit comes upon you, and you'll be witnesses in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, to the ends of the earth. You got to start in Jerusalem. You got to start in your home city. And so I think KLI and everything else, it's about preparing our community. By the way, we're going into another presidential election. Whoever's the president doesn't fix all this. This is going to be transformed from the inside out or nothing.
True.
This is a grassroots thing that needs to take shape and have fire, and everyone believes again, or we lose it all. We've lost our identity.
True.
So we start in Jerusalem. We go to Judea. We start in a city. We go to our state. We go to our nation. We go to the ends of the earth. We've got to have all the jurisdictions. And so I'd say that that is KLI. Number one, we need to be people of prayer. Number two, that I think that we have to take the personal account and understand. Secure your own gas mask first here before you help someone else on the airplane. Otherwise, you can't do it. So start at home. Do some of the things. How do you prepare? What are some of the things that you can do? I just want to throw in just one piece of advice here, and that is, so the stock market's probably going to have some challenges. My personal belief is that there's going to be, the oil is going to go up probably to 150 a barrel. It's under 100 right now, but it's going to go to 150 like quick. And so gas prices are going to be going up significantly, guys. Sorry about that. So if you can have more fuel efficient vehicles or figure out how to drive less, do Zoom meetings and things like that, those are ways to cut back and set yourself up. But you can also be an investor in oil, and you can capitalize on this. Additionally, metals are going to become very important. Specifically, yes, there's the industrial ones like copper and uranium that are going to be really important if we continue on with this Green New Deal stuff. But gold and silver, extremely important to actually own physically, I believe, because it takes diesel to mine it, and diesel is about to get way more expensive. That already would make the price go up. Understand this as well. I didn't look at it this morning, but I think the ratio of gold to silver today is 81 or 82 to 1. So 82 silver for 1 ounce of gold. I will do that deal every day of my life, meaning I want silver. Why? We can produce 9 ounces of silver for every 1 ounce of gold. But the challenge is that silver isn't put into a safe usually. It's used to make computers and because it's really good at conducting electricity, so it makes chips. And so that silver just gets used. Well, if we just use a normal ratio of gold to silver of just supply and demand, what they can produce, silver should be at $200. It's currently at $23. Well, it should be today at 200. It's been manipulated artificially in order to make our technology cheaper.
Yeah, solar panels.
Solar panels and everything. They need the silver to connect the points. And in fact, we have deficits of silver that we don't even like. We need millions of extra ounces. China, they want millions of extra ounces that we don't have. And you got something, John?
Look at asset-backed, crypto asset-backed, really hard asset-backed, not just Ether, but asset-backed currency and PGMs, platinum group metals, gold, silver, platinum are going to be key to supporting those assets.
That's right.
So that's why it factors in, and some states looking at gold bullion reserves, and so
Texas.
that's going to increase the price of gold. So,
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah.
I just had 2 questions. You touched on one, but one was drilling for oil here.
Yeah.
What that would do for the economy, and then the other was you see people that own property or have the ability to finance, like when people used to, you could buy a loan or a home on, they take the note or some property.
Oh, assuming the mortgage? Yeah.
Yeah, you see that coming maybe as a church body, we could do some things like that.
Yeah, I think actually it's important to understand, and this is something I'm trying to figure out, is can we assume these 3% mortgages? Like, let's just say that someone loses their job, they need to move or whatever, or they had this place as an Airbnb, no one wants to go there anymore, so they got to sell it. Well, hey, can you walk in and say, hey, I'll just take over your payments, but I'm not putting money down or whatever, but then they get out of it. It doesn't ding their credit up. That can be a really good option. There's going to be a lot of moves. There's going to be a ton of opportunities in commercial real estate, specifically like office buildings. And I think they can be converted to apartments and other things. And so that's, in my opinion, going to be the biggest swing that's about to occur. What's that?
Great cash flow.
Great cash flow. Yeah, that's right. Yes.
Can our kids, like our adult kids, my kids are 45 and stuff, so
Cool.
can they change from the person who's doing their money right now
Mhm.
to you
Mhm.
without losing money? I mean, like, can they
Yeah.
switch over to you?
So great question. So if you are looking for a different financial relationship or you have a 401k or whatever, if you're over the age of 59 and a half and you've got a 401k, you should be able to move that money now, even though you remain employed and you still make contributions. If you have been unemployed from a particular position and you had a 401k and you could be young, maybe you got furloughed for COVID even, that actually opens up because you were not in service, you were unemployed for a moment, you can move dollars over. It's very easy to be able to do that non-taxable transfer from a 401k to an IRA. Those are synonymous. But actually, we should just mention that really quick. Taxes are going to go up a ton, like a ton. We're going so far backwards right now. It doesn't matter who's president, honestly. Medicare and Social Security today, well, this is a fantastic point. Medicare and Social Security today, 67% of the entire tax revenue that's collected. But just the top 4 things, Medicare, Social Security, defense spending, and then the interest payments that we have to make on our debt, those 4 things are more than what we bring in tax revenue by $104 billion. 104 billion used to be a big number. But just those 4 things, our federal government does a lot more than just 4 things. And that's where we are right now. You just add it up, go to usdebtclock.org. Yeah, there we go.
One more question.
Sure, Tim. And US oil is important.
There will be another session after lunch where these guys will have a business panel and y'all have the ability to go. I want to highlight something here and then we got to take a break because we're going to get some pictures and then we're going to eat and we'll start the panel session later. But Can you see how important with the kind of caliber of folks we have here?
Yeah.
How important it is for us to be praying for them
Yes.
so they can hear what Holy Ghost is saying in the midst of this because of the place of influence? Okay, and that's part of what I wanted to illustrate with this whole meeting here, is the goals you have in each one of us. And candidly, I have need to see us begin to collaborate together amongst ourselves so that we make sure those that are part of us hit the mark for their assignment.
Yes.
We desperate, it's to our benefit to see them see you do well. So with that in mind,